Good evening, welcome to tonight's Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy, this is FailCraft Casts, hope you're all well and good, and tonight we have ladder in, and hopefully learning some as well. So, as I've just mentioned to those folks live on the stream, if you are struggling a bit in your ladder adventure in a new season, it's always worth going back to a deck that you know and love. You know well, the one maybe you played from the beginning, the one you're getting really used to, so that you can put in a huge stint with that, or a bit of a stint with that, and that at least gives you sort of a benchmark. You know the deck, so if the metagame has changed, and you're using a deck that you know well, then you can at least work out what the problems are that you're having, rather than maybe switching between decks and not quite knowing either whether it's the deck or whether it's you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go right back to basics, going to play a bit of ladder, analyse my deck that I'm playing as well as the decks I'm playing against, and slow my play right down. Those of you who tune in regularly may have seen me fail on a regular basis, and that generally tends to be when you rush. So for that reason, let us jump in with our favoured control warrior. And before I just jump in, we'll quickly run through the control warrior that we have. So it is very heavy in the early game control. It drops 1 slam to have 2 cleave. 2 cleave is situational. It's really only for very heavy aggro. There are control warriors that run none whatsoever. All of this is pretty standard. Looking at Armor Smith, the Cruel Taskmaster, you can switch out Throttling Berserkers for Core Cron Elites, 4 mana, 4 attack, 3 health and charge. Brawls generally only tend to be 1. Faceless is a situational one but can be useful, and then this finishing set, give or take Ysera, this is quite common too. So if you take a look at the mana curve of this, it's quite a lot of big finishes in the late game to get you there. If you can get to that late game stage, then you've got finishes galore. But some decks tend to drop 1, maybe 2 of those big late game finishes to give themselves more armour in the middle of the deck, and by armour I mean sort of insulation. So you might see a couple of Tazdingos, the Sinjin Shieldmaster, pop up in the middle. You might see somewhat aggressive early game minions like the Core Cron Elite for 4 mana, and you can see dropped cleaves to give you more solidness beyond spells in that early game. But because we know this deck, as we've said, we've gone through a bit of a ladder rough patch. We're sort of struggling, as you've seen, we've been struggling around rank 16 for the last week. We're going to take it back to basics. You're more than welcome to lurk. You do not have to chat or say anything, it's just nice to have you here. So we will always say hello. Just good to have you back, so welcome back. Okay, so we've got a priest. Now priests, not so common, season's just gone. Higher back up on the ladder, do seem to be kicking around. Whether it's because priests are on a comeback, Trump has been playing priest, and of course there are many priest fans in the legendary awesome streamers out there. So I would not be too surprised if priest is having a bit of a renaissance, but it's generally been seen a bunch in the lower ladder as well. So I know that a priest will probably come at me with some awkward early game cards. I don't mind a Whirlwind, Shield Slam and Armor Smith. I'm probably going to drop the Whirlwind, keep the Shield Slam, although that could be got rid of as well, and look for either an axe or some early game minions. I don't mind having the Throttling Berserker, and with a coin that means I can accelerate into something, so I have some early game options, which is good. So priest, you've seen a few versions with bubbles kicking around. Do I want to coin into that? No. Will I perhaps coin into a Throttling Berserker turn 2? Yes. Seems like most play warrior today. I'm back to it because it's kind of a home from home. Now, coining in, this is a risk because, of course, priests have Shadow Word Pain. So playing anything against a priest, and of course the one thing with Control Warrior, some of the early game cards, is that we're suckers for a Shadow Word Pain. Destroy a minion with 3 or less. And he's just gone for a silence. Interesting. Straight up silence there. So, although that's not going to get big and nasty, I know, at least it means that I have some options to attack with. So, throw that on the table. I could have equally armoured up. Note that I'm still vulnerable to Shadow Word Pain. Of course, with all of these, that's the one thing against priests. So, if you do have things like the Core Cron Elite, or other sort of chunkier cards, you know, most early game minions will have 3 or less attack, so Shadow Word Pain for a priest. They generally pack it because it's good early game control. And against those tanks that have really low attack but incredibly high health, Shadow Word Pain becomes even better value because you can just work on removals. Nuska says in the chat, 4 attack minions are awesome against priests. They certainly are. The Chillwind Yeti, I love to mention, and there are also some other nice chunky ones. And then Elitessa says, that's the thing with Hearthstone. A lot of people play Warrior, people make decks to counter that. You have just described the metagame. They absolutely will. The way to get through the metagame, and I should practice what I preach rather than chopping and changing decks all the time, but a way of getting around that in a way is just knowing your deck and building a deck and tweaking that deck, and then maybe having one or two decks you're really comfy with. So we can see that the other good card, the Injured Blade Master, but I've drawn into the exact card I'd like for that. So I can do one of two things. I can trade this away with all my minions, or I can decide to just use one of my valuable executes. I'm going to slam to draw a card first. Cleave is not going to do much for me here. Shield Slam I'm not going to remove. I'm quite happy with an execute before that becomes a threat, and we will just keep tapping away. Now with a priest, of course, remember that at 10 mana we come into mind control. I'll throw down the 10 mana mind control that just nicks a minion. Now that is a problem against control warrior. If they pack mind control, and most priests will pack one. Faceless Manipulatoring and Armor Smith. I'm guessing that our opponent is having a few problems. So I need to press home my advantage as quickly as possible. So I'm quite happy to shield slam away with my new 5 armor. I'm going to get that damage in. Now, as I was saying, mind control on turn 10, any big finishes that we get down, our opponent is going to be able to steal. So we should assume, when playing a priest, you want to get as much done as possible without rushing it before turn 10, because when you get to turn 10, that's going to get painful. Sylvanas Windrunner, my nemesis. For those of you wondering why Sylvanas is my nemesis, have a look on my YouTube and you can see me failing miserably. Oh, so miserably against Sylvanas. So I'm just going to keep charging in here because when Sylvanas dies... ooh, something funny going on with my monitor. My apologies, I'm just going to sort that out. So Sylvanas, when Sylvanas passes away, will nick enemy minion. So I need a way of dealing with that, and ideally making sure that they don't nick one of my minions. So now I don't have any executes or similar. I can double cleave. In fact, yeah, that's actually not the worst play at this point of the game. Now this may seem excessive, but the reason for this is that I want to remove Sylvanas, and then because Sylvanas is no longer there, Sylvanas is not going to mind control any of my minions. Now notice that Sylvanas' Death Rattle, take control of random enemy minion. So you ideally want Sylvanas to go when there's nothing good on the table, as it were. Down goes Velen, so putting out a golden Velen nonetheless. Now I can swing straight in and remove that, or I can RNG Naros. So I can go for the hard control, or I can just remove that with my hero. Now it's actually a risk if I don't go for the hard control, so I'm going to grab Gorehowl, swing in for 7, remove. Now although I do take 7, my nice armor stack has removed one of his big finishes. Double the damage and healing of your spells and hero power. You don't see Velen so much nowadays, but he is pretty tasty. So down he goes, Holy Nova, healing that up. I can still remove that. So note that we're now on turn 9, now note that we're into the danger zone. So what do I want to do? I want to make sure, as opposed to throwing other things that you can steal, I get the effect of that Alexstrasza. I'm going to remove that minion. Now, let's assume the worst. Remember what we said earlier on turn 10, assume he's going to cast a mind control. If he takes Alexstrasza, he's not going to be able to use that 15, that reducing health effect. And there we go. We assumed the mind control, we played into the mind control, and that turned up. So if we dropped Ragnaros, that would start doing damage to us, wouldn't it? But now, do I have an execute? I do. So notice that if I'd thrown down Ragnaros at that stage, then he could have taken my Ragnaros and put me under pressure. Instead, I went for the control play and got the effect in that was not going to really benefit from mind control. So notice this control warrior combo if you do not play control warriors. Remember that Grommash, when he's enraged, has +6 attack, which takes him to 10. The Cruel Taskmaster takes him to 12, and then that alongside of Gorehowl gives me the 15 damage I need for the victory. It's nice to be able to talk through a deck when you're pretty much 100% confident in what it does. And there is game number 1, Total Dominance. Total Dominance at rank 16. That's not really Total Dominance, is it? Cool. So that was a nice quick sort of 5-6 minute game, and there you go, that's Control Warrior for those of you who are new to Control Warrior in a nutshell. So that was a priest. Priest will suffer a little bit against control, but now we're going to see the ever popular hunter. So let's see if this is a mid-range and this is the one we've been playing. If it's a hunter, I know that he will probably have hyenas in the mid game. I also know that he will quite likely drop some nasty. I also know that he'll probably drop some quite irritating early game minions. We could be looking at things such as web spinners for him to draw beasts, perhaps the haunted creepers, the spider. When it dies from Naxx Remus, it spawns 2 small spiders. But instead we see a leper gnome. Interesting. That could indicate that he's playing an earlier game, more rushy type deck. So actually at this stage in the game I'm quite happy. Weirdly, you saw the Cruel Taskmaster last time being used to buff up my Grommash. For the interest of control, I'm quite happy to throw this on the table and get table control. However, against a hunter, what we always want to be a little bit mindful of is not overloading our table with minions too early, and also not taking too much damage to our hero. Many's the time that I've tried to control with my warrior using the weapons, and then suddenly found out that I've got my opponent's table clear, but he's just using steady shot to ping me in the face on a very regular basis. So the armor smith to armor up would be nice. Frothing Berserker would put more early game pressure on, so I'm going to go for the Frothing Berserker and take a risk. But if I suddenly fill this up with 5, I'm thinking that, you know, if I fill up my table with minions, then we're looking at an Unleash the Hounds, we're looking at perhaps a Timberwolf or something similar that will buff all of his beasts, and then suddenly he'll be swinging for a lot of damage. So down goes the Wolf Rider, and he's actually charging straight into me. So note that we're actually looking at a rush deck here. We've seen a Leper Gnome and a Wolf Rider, so they're very, very good indicators that our opponent here is looking to rush us down. That means we want to armor up. We don't want to take too much damage to the face if we can help it. So for that reason, I'm going to actually suicide one of my minions. Now I'm keeping my minion count relatively low. I could grab a weapon, there could be removal there, but instead, remember what I said, I'm wanting to armor up and keep my health or overall pool of damage I can take relatively high. So I don't mind sacrificing that Taskmaster. I've got the better attacking Frothing Berserker and the armor granting Armor Smith. Down goes the secret. That could be a misdirect. What I will generally want to do there is try and play around it. So down goes a Hunter's Mark. Interesting. Now the reason I think that is an explosive trap now is that he's kind of, or she has kind of given that away by making the Hunter's Mark. Playing the Hunter's Mark has effectively said, I want this on a low health even though I can't attack it, and to me that indicates that this is an explosive trap. Now I'm actually quite happy to trigger that, and I'll show you why. If this gets removed, note that if I drop my Acolyte of Pain, and I'm actually going to go in with my Armor Smith, because just in case it was a misdirect, explosive trap deals 2, that removes my Frothing Berserker, but also note that it gives me armor, and I also get the benefit of the card draw from the Acolyte of Pain. Now notice that all of that damage going down, I still do damage. You can see I've got my 3 health there. I could drop an axe to start swinging away, or I could armor up. So I'm going to go conservative. I'm going to armor up. The reason I didn't drop an axe, if I'd thrown an axe down, I would just be leaving it vulnerable. I'm not doing anything with it on that turn. I'm leaving it vulnerable to removal. He could be packing an Acidic Swamp Ooze, for example. Very unlikely that he's packing a Harrison Jones, but perhaps he has a Harrison Jones. So if you throw down a weapon and you're not going to do anything with it that turn, you are waiting for a risk of some weapon removal. And of course, if I throw down a Gorehowl and that gets removed, then that makes me sad. So another secret goes down. We do not know what that is. It could be an explosive trap, it could be a misdirect, snake trap, all kinds of things. So what's the correct order? We've shown Hearthstone half hours of playing around secrets before. Generally you attack with the lowest health minion. There we go. We now know that 2 explosive traps have gone down. I get my armour. And I also, beg pardon, get my card draw. So for that, not so bad. Now, because I've got 2 weapons in hand, I'm 6/6. I could drop that, but I know I've got a Gorehowl next turn, so I might rather drop that. So for that reason, I'm actually just going to armour up. And I'm not going to drop a Cruel Taskmaster. I'm just going to sit and wait this one out. And of course, against a hunter, if he's got a clear side of the table, and you also have a clear side of the table, it's not awful. And there we go, Cairn Bloodhoof. A tempo changing card if ever there was one. So I have options now. I can drop my Gorehowl, and my Gorehowl will just let me swing this away, so I can get the first bit of that off the table. I'm quite happy to do that for a control play. Of course, it's going to pop up again, but notice that I then have Ysera, Extraza, I've got an Execute, I've got a Cruel Taskmaster, I can Whirlwind, so I can remove this without touching him. Now, I have taken some damage. I don't want to be taking too much more damage, of course, but we're in a reasonably good position. It's pretty even. I know I've got a strong response. Now, there goes another aggro card, the Knife Juggler. The Erden Ring Farseer lets him restore health, so he's starting to swarm the table. Steady shot goes down, and then we all take a Bane Bloodhoof to the face. We are on 16, so that's not ideal. Extraza will drop his health, we're not worried about that. What we need to do is control this in a calm and cool manner. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to Whirlwind. Drops everything down 1. I'm going to Execute. Drops everything down 2. And then Cleave finishes up the remaining 3 before I armour up. So that was always a little expensive in terms of using that Execute, but I think it's worth it because we've got the threat out of the way. I've been able to save my Gore health for what it's worth, or not take damage to my face. Remember what we were saying in the early game, don't want to be taking damage to the face against this hunter. So 6 out of 8, what's he going to be doing? He's got options. And again, I could go for Ysera, or I could go for an Alex. Now the Alex will accelerate things and say, hey, unless you do something, and look, I've got my winning combo again. I've got Gromesh and Taskmaster. So Alex is the play. And the reason for Alex being the play is he's going to have to try and take this out, or he needs to try and do 16 to me in one turn. Now hunters are more than capable of doing that, particularly if you've got a very full board and Unleash the Hounds as a possibility. Other things that a hunter could do, don't rule out a hunter with the odd Leroy Jenkins in, or charging nasty card in the deck for that 6 damage. If a hunter's got a weapon, remember they can have 2 from their steady shot, they can swing a weapon. Down goes the Hunter's Mark. Imagine the Arcane Shot or a charging minion. Kill command has had to be used up, which is slightly frustrating for the hunter. And with 4 mana left, down goes a Hyena. He is in a position 2, but not quite to finish. Down goes a coin. Could 3 mana make the difference? Kill command lets me take damage to the face. So he is close. Now note how close this hunter has got. Another turn and I would be done, but it's good that I've just got my winning combo up. So again, I've managed to get the correct combo up to make things work. Now, there we go. And this is the point, you know, I know this deck well. Is it the fact that I'm playing it well? I'm playing it okay. I'm not going to big myself up. But the fact is, knowing a deck well and knowing what you're going to be coming up against, whatever stage of the ladder you are at, be it very low or very high, just increases your chances of making the right plays. And you've probably seen me when we've done New Player Mondays, and I've been going through some of the decks that we've been experimenting with, trying to learn Death Rattling Mage and similar. You know, you're more liable to make some silly mistakes if you play quick. And you're also more liable to make mistakes naturally, absolutely naturally, when you're learning. Okay, we now have another hunter, so for Warwick's Cleave, I don't need Ragnaros, that's an obvious trade back. Cleave is situational. You can see that with the hunter we were playing at, he kept his cards on the table quite low. So I could trade Cleave. I'm going to just keep it down there and take the risk, and this is why 2 Cleave. If you're playing against people who aren't flooding the table with minions, then Cleave is effectively redundant, because you can't use it unless there are 2 minions on the table for your opponent. Okay, I don't really want to be coining into anything there. So I'm quite happy to tap the table and let my opponent continue. And welcome, Fail Gamers. Good to have you with us also. Okay, so we can just see a straight play into a Direwolf. Now him dropping that Direwolf just gives me a big target. If I leave that on the table, it buffs all minions as a 2-2. I'm totally happy with dropping an axe and removing it. I could have waited another turn and used Cleave, but I'm going to get that off the table early. Now, ooh, okay, he's drawn into a Leok. Nice. There's no way I can quite... Oh, tell a lie, there is a way I can remove that. It would involve using up one of my precious Whirlwinds. I don't want to use an Execute on something like this, but I think that... Or I can Shield Slam. Do I Whirlwind or Shield Slam? I'm going to Whirlwind. Now, sometimes keeping Whirlwind is very nice to trigger your own minions' abilities. So, for example, Armour Smith and Acolyte of Pain. Make yourself draw more cards, get yourself to armour up. Starving Buzzard. I would like to remove that, please. Scavenging Hyena. Nicely played. Draws a card, and of course, here is a thing for kill order. Now, I cannot remove both of these now. No, tell a lie, I actually can. There goes the Buzzard. He's managed to draw one. I'm going to use one of my 2 Cruel Taskmasters like I did last game for that removal. I don't want the Buzzard on the table any longer than necessary. Every beast that he plays, he draws a card, and he already drew a card there. So Combine that so with Unleash. Down goes an Eagle Horn Bow. Hunter doing a bit of weapon control of his own. Oh no, he's going straight for my face. Interesting. Obviously he feels that with his cards in hand, he just wants to rush me down or do a lot of damage. So he's going like the last game. And there you go, I've drawn into Grommash, but note that I'm kind of lacking some options to do anything bar armour up here. I could Taskmaster, but do I want to save that for an attack or not? More minions would encourage and Unleash the Hounds. So although it feels counterintuitive to waste that 3 mana, I think that... Ooh, Cleave, says Ellie. Let's have a look. Oh, very good point. Yes. Stupid me. There was a very good play there of Cleave. having talked about how I should wait until 2 minions are on the table for Cleave, I promptly ignored Cleave. So that's a very good point. I actually used 2 cards when 1 would have done. Ridiculous. There you go. Focus more, Hammy, and chat a little bit less. Right, so what is the play here? Well, a faceless manipulator would be a very nice option, but he's going to rush me to the face. I can remove this, but I cannot quite remove it. No, I can. Tell a lie, I can. So I'm going to faceless that to give me some impetus. Now I can then tip this in for the execute. Even grabbing another mana, that's not going to do anything for me. FailCraft Fail. Thank you, Ellie Tessa in chat, for pointing out my lack of Cleave using stupidity. These things happen. Clearly, as I've won 2 games in a row, I've got cocky. And having got cocky, I've sped up playing, and that is where the mistakes creep in. So I've gone for the trade to get rid of his Simba, and he does have 2/2/2/2s. 2/2/2s. And that's going to be a bear, then a Leok. Ooh, that makes it even more dangerous, so he can trade this away. I make silences, so he's got the removal there. Nice, and he can probably trade that away with 2 hyenas. But by the looks of things, he is, I think, just going to charge me. Look, now see how he charges me straight to the face. Okay, so I do have options here. I cannot armor up. I can 3/2/2. I could charge him with a Grommash and give him something to think about. But I'm looking at removal here. So first things first, let's Berserker. Reason for Berserker first, when stuff takes damage, I'm going to be gaining attack. I'm then going to Simba. Now, that gains me attack, lovely, but then it drops all of those down. Now, I can then throw in a Cleave, that will certainly remove 2. Now, do I want to leave myself vulnerable to Unleash the Hounds? Well, I can't remove this final minion now, so I'm going to just armour up and say, right, cool. Thank you to that who are saying Cleave, use Cleave, don't forget the Cleave. IB Cal, nice play there, silencing off Berserker, removing the threat. But now you notice that he's just dropping token minions. So we are not. Oh, no, they're now no longer token minions. A very nice play. Houndmaster coming in, and I'd imagine that if we go to current form, he's just trying to rush me down. He is not caring for no one. He's just rushing us down. So, okay, Slam will help us do 1 trade, 2 trades. We can Grommash. This will let us remove 1 as well. If he has an Unleash, we're in trouble. But what I could really Taskmaster the 2/1 and then Cleave. I've hung on to the Taskmaster.
What now?
Yeah, the Taskmaster and then Cleave would be the clear. Ooh, my stream is buffering. Sorry on the buffering. Looks as though I need to tweak with a few settings because it's happening more and more now. So I can slam that in and trade it. I can slam this in and trade it. First thing I'm going to do is draw a card with my slam. See what I can get. Okay, an Acolyte. Grommash could have been an option for a trade too. In fact, that may have been the correct play. Trade, Grommash, and have 1 powered up minion on the table. Okay, so that I think that slam may have been a tad redundant. But for what it's worth, let's do the trig that we can do. And then I'm going to Taskmaster into an Acolyte. And I'm actually going to... Weirdly, I'm going to coin into an armour. And I don't know if you occasionally get this bug where the button goes all sideways and you can't actually click through it. It's a funny little visual one. Right, Gladiator's Longbow. Ooh, ouch. Now note that that is lethal in 3 turns. In fact, less, 2 turns. Unless I can armour up. So our hunter is actually drawn into everything that they so desire and require. Now I've actually lost, like, because the only thing I can do here is draw a card and see if I... Ooh, okay. There's no way of me self-damaging my minions though. So note that he's going to have 7 damage next go. I can't remove the weapon. I'm not going to be able to destroy him. So I've actually lost due to running out of armor. Now, the armor smith is fine if I drop it, but it's not going to... This is where that whirlwind would have been good. Whirlwind would have saved me for another turn. So as a result, that is most likely a loss. Okay, so sadly we've lost that one, and now that was an interesting example of how I took too much damage too early. Now, I didn't manage to keep myself high. He managed to keep the pressure on, and he's got his 7 lethal there. I've got 6, so that's that. Options, the cleave, as you said, for example. If I'd managed to drop that cleave in a bit earlier, perhaps that would have kept more damage off me a bit more early. And we should have time for just a couple more games before end of stream. So with that one's so that was as Ellie says in chat, it could have been a little bit more luck of the draw there, but at the same time, I think, with that cleave, we could have perhaps taken a bit more damage off the table earlier on. Right, Whirlwind, Cleave, and Acolyte. I'm going to drop the Whirlwind and see... Shield Slam. Okay. We can try and do something with that.
Job's done.
Okay, nothing going on there.
Is someone injured?
Okie dokie, sorry for the tipping and tapping away. I still do have the last few. Weirdly enough, I'm still doing a few little bits of work. So let's armour up. Another priest, and there we go, 1 attack and 3 health. We want to get that cleric off the table if we can. Ideally, if we'd drawn into a Fiery War Axe, that would have been great.
The damned stand ready.
And down goes a Dark Cultist. This card from Naxx is getting increasingly popular because if it dies, it buffs minions and makes priests just generally awkward. Right, so I can cleave into a Whirlwind. I can cleave into a Whirlwind, and he's going to spin that away. I don't have a full removal. Getting the cleave damage in feels sensible. Now I could Shield Slam for 1. Next turn I probably won't Shield Slam for anything. Shield Slamming for 1 ain't great. Generally you want to have loads of armour and then Shield Slam for millions, but it's one of those where if you suddenly Shield Slam for 20, that you're doing a lot of overkill against minions anyway. With Shield Slam, of course, you can only Shield Slam a minion as well. If you Shield Slam for like low armour, then you suddenly feel as though you're almost wasting it in a way. Here's a play. I can get myself an additional card draw. He could heal this for 1, but he could trade it away. But I'm hoping that he doesn't heal up. There's a risk of him healing up. If I really wanted to remove that Dark Cultist, I should have Whirlwinded and Fiery War Axe. That would have been very aggressive, but it would have got it done. As is, I do... Yep, there we go. There's the risk of him healing up. Oh, Dark Cultist into Dark Cultist. Now you see that's the challenge, because he's now going to buff his Dark Cultist for more health. So I should have removed that. Now I'm going to have all kinds of healing-y things flying around in a nasty way. Okay, so not great. I can draw into another X. So you see now, because I did not kill that last turn, I'm going to have to take the Death Rattle effect, and that suddenly becomes a 7 health minion, which is going to be pretty awkward to remove. Thankfully, I do have Gorehowl coming up, which means I can deal with these kind of things. The attack isn't huge. I do have shield block for more armour. And interesting, down goes a Stalag. Now Stalag, so awkward. 5 mana, 7 attack, 4 health, so removable, yet bloody awkward. Ooh, pardon my language. Try not to swear. So I can swing in and then Whirlwind, that will get him removed, but I am going to be taking 7 to my face. So for that reason I could have also gone for a Ken for the tempo, but this is just a little bit nasty. So for that reason I'm going to swing in with this. I'm going to do some of that. If I just waited a little bit longer I could have slammed to get that removed, but as is I'll go for the Whirlwind. Now of course there is the nastiness of... I'm going to do that for a card draw as well. There's the nastiness of if Stalag and Fugan both go down, then suddenly you get Thaddeus spawning. And indeed there's been a vogue of Shaman decks and similar trying to abuse the Stalag Fugan Thaddeus combo. So for those of you who haven't seen Stalag, when if Stalag and Fugan have both died, then you have to summon Thaddeus. So if you can respawn one of those cards, then you can summon multiple Thaddiuses, and Thaddeus is an 11/11, which is not nice. So you can see that I'm kind of just about in there. I've got my Gorehowl, I've got my Grommash Taskmaster, I can throw down Rag, but we're popping into turn 8. So because we're popping into turn 8, I want to get Ragnaros, the Fire Lord, in there, and then I can annex Straza, and then hopefully I can Grommash and Cruel Taskmaster, and this game will be a distant, unpleasant memory. Okie dokie. Well, our priest contemplates his move. And there goes Flugen. So nastiness, because when that dies, then Thaddeus pops up. So 4/7/7/4. Mirror images of each other. So I could, if I am not careful, summon a Thaddeus. So I would like to be in a... I can do one of two things. I can risk it with a Raggy, or I can, but I need a solution to deal with that Thaddeus. Now I can deal with it with a Grommash, but it's going to be nasty. The alternative is I keep chiseling away at him, but then he can take down my health. So I'm going to YOLO this. This is a risk. If I kill this, note that Thaddeus is going to pop, and there's Thaddeus. So there's Thaddeus. So 11/11. Is he going to attack me to the face? I probably would. You know, he's almost, you do. There we go. Oh, no, he's just gone straight for the trade. That gives me options, happily. It means I can Grommash him next turn, even with a heal. Holy Nova, he's going to try and heal that up as much as possible. But I'm just going to get rid of that. It's not what I'd really want to use my Grommash for, but... Ooh, actually, hang on, I've got a little nastiness there. I'm going to have to take 11 anyway. Ooh, okay, the Cruel Taskmaster. I can't Cruel Taskmaster into a Grom. I can annex Straza, but that's going to be a risk. Yeah. Well, I'm actually just not going to have quite enough to take him out, which is annoying. Unless I go for the very risky Taskmaster Acolyte to draw a card with. So this is not so great. I can take a risk. Okay, if I lose, then it is because I made a silly play. There we go. So that is the power of Stalag and Fugan. Fugan. If we go for a win 2 loss 2, evening Flobbit. Down goes a Frothing Berserker. And there is the Thought Steal in progress. He's suddenly using my weapons against me. And note how low on health I am. So I need ways of dealing. So my way of dealing at the moment is going to be... no. Right. I almost made a misplay there. And what I'm now going to do is remove this first. I could have just hit him then Taskmastered him. I didn't have quite enough mana, I think. Did he have 7?
What now?
If he had 7, then yeah, you're right. I totally messed that up. Oh dear. I'll quit while I'm behind. I can't remember if he was 7 or not. I thought he was 8, but if he was 7, you're right. And then I could have taskmastered him. There was something. Yeah, I was. No. It was 7. I need you guys to play instead. Right. Let's get this right. I'm going to remove the attacking threat. I'm then going to have to Alexstrasza, and that Alexstrasza is going to heal me up instead. So we got place. Hey Flobbit, you should have wondered with good reason. Okay, so we know that Maxner is going to start popping away my big minions, but I managed to heal myself up. Alexstrasza's second use. So I just don't know if a mind control is going to drop, but to be quite frank, I just need to take the risk. So do I flood the table and go crazy? Do I start playing tempo minions? Do I try and grab my Exner? I don't know. Well, I could do with some more card draw. Oh, actually, I've only got 11 cards left. Okay, so well, we know that my Exner is just going to start binning things, and Alexstrasza will be target number 1. So I can either do one of two things. I can get rid of that Armor Smith, or actually I can do that with my Gorehowl. So that's all good. I can armor up to remove myself against threats, or I can just go for a huge I own the table play. So I'm going to try and own this table. Now remember that I have actually protect Alex with Cairn. Yeah, it says Nuska. Yeah, throwing down a Cairn, a play. Yeah, Shadow of Death. Okay, it's not a mind control. Max, no, yeah, that's going to destroy it. A very good call by Nuska, because even though he does destroy it, of course, I do get the respawn minion, and that means that I can get rid of my Exner. Gain control with a minion with Thresh, attack till the end of turn. Yeah, he's going to suicide it, grab some armor himself. So, yeah, Ken isn't taunt, but you're actually right, Nuska, in that it has given me a protection for my against my Exner, because what I can now do is play this guy. So I know that he's always going to go with my Exner for the biggest threat. So I may as well just clear off my Exner with that. And I still have finish options. Oh, my beg pardonness. I was wanting to drop Ysera that turn. That's a miss. I should have got Ysera down. And I know that Ysera will be a prime target for a mind control. So looking back at that, I could have, should have, would have probably entertained using my weapon, as any good control warrior should. I should have used the remaining 3 on Gorehowl. Let me drop Ysera. Okay, going for the plays, going for the heals, making removals happen. Oh, do you know what? I am struggling with maths today. It is a struggle. Charge! But on the bright side, look at how I've now somehow managed to get 17 health. My health is gradually going up. Pray for card. Pray for no mind control. You see those Twitter hashtags that, you know, pray for Bieber type thing, that kind of joke thing that's going around. You know, priests have mind control. We know that mind control happens. Mass Dispel, that's a nice play. So obviously that just makes Ysera a big tanky nasty minion. Now our priest is going to have some kind of finishers, but we're running low on cards. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go for some table control and start swinging away with your Sarah. I do have Geddon. I can see that there's a bit of a lag between when I am commentating, of course, as always, and what the stream is doing. So this will be our last game, folks, for this evening, but we will be back more times, as always. Thought Steel, going for some robbery. Now, I don't know what I've got left in the deck. Let me think. I don't have a Gromash. I may have... Arangineros is still in there. There we go. Now I've got a Cleave, and he's got something else. I don't know what that something else is, but I need to start laying down some pressure. So I don't quite want to get in just yet. What I may want to do is armour up. I may as well Taskmaster, and I'll Taskmaster on my bigger minion, and then I can start the swings. There we go, 13 health. Pressure is well and truly on. Okay, so heavy control, a death into your Sarah. Now you see that was a challenge. Holy Fire gets my Drake down, so he is hanging on in. However, I now have opportunities to go on the offensive, so I may as well. Should I get him? Why not? I'm just going to hit him very hard. And down another Holy Nova. Holy Nova is keeping our priest in the fight. Now we just need to know he's waiting. Down goes a War Axe. He's going to try and hoist me by my own petard. But it looks as though that as I slowly run out of finishes, that our priest friend is trying to use for something. And this is where the Control Warrior variant that I'm playing, the very late game one, is just a pain. As Nuska says, Mind Control goes for the entire deck. Absolutely. So we've not seen a finisher from this priest, so I reckon he's got a Ragnaros or something that he's holding back. We're just going to keep throwing out cards and saying, hey, alright, I can armour up, you can't. You can heal up, I can't. Let's see who is going to emerge victorious.
You love my new recipe.
Okay, there's some more removal. The Crazed Alchemist making things nice enough. And of course, stealing my weapon, doing my things. So, I'm now going to go for a control play. Now I can keep armouring up, he can keep healing up. So we can both restore 2 per turn. But, card counting wise, I think I got Ragnaros. As long as he's not grabbed, he grabbed a Cleave and an Axe. They're the last 2 cards that we saw him grab with a Thought Steal. So if I can protect Ragnaros and he doesn't mind control it, there goes the SWP. So all of the control is now coming out. He's healing, I'm healing. We're going right down to an exhaust in this our last game. Is it going to be 2-2 or 3-1? Armour up. I'm going to take some more damage than him, so I need my finisher to count. And I've just got full control. Loteb. Down goes Loteb. Makes all my spells cost 5 more. Thankfully I have loads of armour. Ooh, Faceless Manipulator. Now there's a play. Decisions. Do I Faceless Manipulate to get additional... I think I'm going to go for the control, because I just feel in my guts. We've not seen a finisher from our opponent. I feel that there's some finishing card, and if there is some finishing card, the Faceless could be the difference between victory and defeat. Facelessing Loteb and missing the chance of removal, even with a 6 mana Shield Slam, just felt as though it probably wasn't worth it. Now he's going to try and exhaust me here. And is that Rag? No, I've already had a Rag. Alright, in that case it looks as though we are in trouble. I can't... What happened with Rag? I've...
In the light's name.
I can't even remember Rag. What happened to Rag? There we go. And now suddenly with the heals we start getting the buffed little minion that's going to be the nastiness and awkwardness. So I'm just going to armour up and wait for something bigger and nastier. And if nothing drops that is bigger and nastier, then, well... he's still not thrown anything on the table. Now, I don't actually have anything that can remove that. I can face us into it, but I just feel that... Well, why not? This may well be a loss anyway. This is where he sees I've dropped the Faceless, so if he does have that finisher, now will be the time that it hits the deck. This feels like one of those games where an early pressure, a bit more early pressure, so take a look at our deck list. If we maybe traded out a Cleave, if we possibly looked at dropping Ysera. Ysera is not 100% necessary in this deck, so maybe I think that, not as a jump reaction, but with all of the decks we played, like that Hunter for example, that we lost to just now, more early game pressure would have given us some benefits. It would have put us in a better position to actually almost win before we got into this slightly messy situation in the first place. So our opponent is doing one of two things. He's genuinely worried, or he is just rubbing it in. Yeah, oh, I've got 9 attack. The fearsome Light Warden. And with that, we will concede defeat. Now, that was a winnable game. I feel that a misplay or two, as you guys said, I think taking a bunch of damage. So, hitting him and then taskmastering him when we had Gorehowl out would have removed. And the Thaddeus, note that the Thaddeus was a pain as well. So we stayed in that a bit longer, but we could have ground him down a bit. So, win 2, lost 2, and as with any good ladder Wednesday, we're right back to where we started. So, thanks so much for tuning in. We did a bit of laddering and learning with none other than Control Warrior this evening, and we will be back, as always, tomorrow. We'll try and do a lunchtime stream tomorrow, as always, but if you are joining us for the first time, or have just joined us recently, do come and check out youtube.com/FailCraft Casts if you're watching live. We've got over 100 episodes of deck guides and all kinds of stuff, and pick your own arenas and all kinds of jazz, so it'd be good to have a look at some of that. If you're watching on YouTube, twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast. We are live Monday through Friday. We try and make it 7:38 PM UK time, rough other times if I've got those right, East and West Coast US. And then, of course, we will always try and tweet on @FailCraft Casts before we go live, and with as much time notice as possible in case those times change. Last but not least, the website failcraft.org. You can find out a whole bunch of few articles, a few bits of fun there, a few things that don't exist as well in a video, a bit better in a blog. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Tomorrow night is Thursday, so we'll do a bit of Tactics Thursday, or a little bit of fun, weird and wonderful viewer challenges, and lunchtime wise we'll be looking at maybe doing some more arena. So thanks for tuning in, and take